annual meeting. Resetting America, healing a nation, opportunity for all. This is going to be one of the most interesting discussions of the forum. All of them are interesting. This one's compelling, interesting, because it's authentic and it's real. And it involves somebody who I've learned and grown to respect a great deal over his career. He's currently vice chairman for public affairs at Wells Fargo. He's formerly the chief of staff to President Barack Obama. He was also Secretary of Commerce under President Clinton. He comes from a legacy family in Chicago that really led the city and the nation from the center of the country, and some would argue responsible indirectly for the election of a U.S. president through their family's active encouragement. He's lived in history and he's seen it, and now he's in the middle of a moment. And his name is Bill Daley, and he's my friend. Now, Wells Fargo has been a sponsor of Operation Hope, full disclosure, since our founding. I think they were the first major bank in 1992 that wrote a check and believed in my dream back in Los Angeles when no one believed in what I was doing. Then we did financial literacy together over the years, and we almost co-founded each other's financial literacy programs. And then when I had this vision for Hope Global Forums, they were the first one in. And they've never asked to speak. They've never asked to be on the program, and I've respected that. We haven't always agreed, but that's family. That's what happens when strong personalities get in the same room. And when this current moment happened, or with this social justice reckoning and what I call unconscious bias, their CEO, Wells Fargo CEO, Charlie Scharf, reached out to me along with Bill Daley. And we had about 6 hours worth of combined conversations, an hour with Charlie Scharf alone. And I found it to be transparent. But I'm going to let Bill Daley speak for himself. He's not a shy man. And I admire that we were supposed to be on yesterday. We had a technical glitch. He came back today, and I'm praying he's with me. My friend Bill Daley.
Thanks, John. I am with you.
Hey, Bill.
I do somewhat apologize, I think, for the technical issues we had. I'm not the most tech-savvy person, but we tried mightily because the panel you had on and the participants you had on yesterday and having on today, I would have really been proud to participate with them. But I'm happy to be able to come back today. Wells, I joined, as you mentioned. We obviously, going back to 92, placed a pretty good bet on not only a person, but a concept. And here you are, and with the forum and the amount of attention which it generates and the quality of the people who participate is a heck of a statement, not only about you, but what you've done over these years for people and for our society. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Bill. And before we get into the current conversation, Bill and I, our first conversation in his new role was fascinating. We did a video conference together, and Darlene, going to one of the African-American leaders there who's so sharp, was on the call with us. And after we talked, Bill said, well, look, what else can we do? Look, philanthropy is great, but we're not going to solve these problems. We can't throw enough money at this to give people the kind of support that they need. We have to empower them. Let's think about this in new and different ways. And he gave license to Darlene and others in the bank to reimagine what we do together. And I'm hopeful in the next few weeks we'll have something to announce in that regard that's pretty innovative. But I just like the way that you open the door to a new way to come at something. And likewise, I think this current situation where Charlie Scharf, your CEO, stepped into a moment of what I'm going to call, and I think he's respectfully called unconscious bias, his own unconscious bias, he's acknowledged that, dealing with the issue of diversity and inclusion. And I found Charlie to be an incredibly brilliant left-brain thinker. We're now in a right-brain world where texture and context and emotions and understanding people left behind and who may not be in the room all that matters so much now. And so, but let me let you speak for yourself. How do you see this moment?
Look, we as a company, we as the business community, are at a moment to really try to change. And I think one of the reasons, obviously, the energy that has been generated post the murder of George Floyd in late May or the very beginning of June, has created an energy that we've not seen in a very long time. But it's an energy that's not left to a small group of people who are pushing for change, but is understood to be much broader. And I think the business community, you look at the Business Roundtable, you look at what companies individually are doing to try to step up and be different, not just in expressions. And we've had comments by business leaders around the issue of inequity and racial justice that you didn't have in the 1960s, right, when the civil rights. And I'm old enough, not you or many of the people probably attending, to have lived in that period. And there are a few outliers from the business community to comment, but the big corporate community, somebody like the CEO of Coca-Cola and others, but very few. Where today, and people could say, well, those are just words. Well, they were words that never used to be spoken. And that is, we've got to do something. So I think you do see a sea change. Much of it, to be honest with you, John, is the younger generation are demanding it. Our workers are demanding it. Our workers are demanding that we do things differently, especially around the issue of injustice to African Americans and the disparity between African Americans and whites and Hispanics and whites and a broad group of people who have not had the opportunities that come from just sometimes from the color of your skin. Yeah. And I think it's real. I really do. And I don't know, does it happen overnight? No. This is President Obama used to say, this nation and our difficulties, it's a voyage that we've got to view as a process that we've got to keep working at and striving to make it better. And the next generation will hopefully make it better. And but I think there's a certain energy right now that's unprecedented. Yeah.
And in our last, again, we talked several times, a couple times over weekends, when most people were with their families. You and I were trying to solve some of the problems of the world. I commend you for taking the time. One of our last conversations, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to paraphrase, the current challenge you saw not as so much of a problem, but as an opportunity. Am I getting that wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. If we look at it as a problem, that's a negative.
Right.
If we look at an opportunity, and in our situation where Charlie made his comments, and obviously they were offensive to not only many of our employees, African American employees, and others on the outside who read them, that he felt that he obviously, whether one states a conscious or an unconscious bias. A conscious bias is pretty obvious. An unconscious bias is something that maybe somebody doesn't understand exactly how the other person is going to hear it. And you've taught me, John, that difference. And the worlds we live in often, I come from a very different world, very political, so even as a young man, the African American community, the black community, when I was young, the Hispanic community was nowhere near the political force. But in the world I grew up in, it was real. And I came from a city that was very segregated, but also race was an issue constantly.
Yeah.
And so you dealt with it constantly. But I do think it's an opportunity. If you don't look at it as an opportunity, then you're just going to continue to look at this issue in a negative way. But for us as a company, it is definitely an opportunity for us to do things differently, for our employees, for the opportunity that we give African Americans and Hispanics for senior roles in our company. Even in the last 2.5 months, we've gone from no diversity on our operating committee, which is the senior management committee, to now 2 African Americans and a third diverse member coming within the next number of weeks, and that's an acknowledgement that our company is changing, and now we've got to take that change at the top and drive it down through the company and make ourselves a better company.
Yeah, and you guys were dealing with when you first got there, a transition situation with the bank, and Charlie probably brought what he called to be his SWAT team, those people he calls on all the time, and probably wasn't thinking about broader issues. But everybody didn't know what you were doing. Now you need the whole army behind you, and what I'm hoping you're doing now, and I think what you're saying you're doing, Charlie, is you're now beginning to pivot and look into the company 2, 3, 4 levels down to see where's that brilliant talent sitting, and how can you put them to use to help you win. And I heard one thing that from one of our conversations, Charlie said to the team, to me it says the light's definitely on. He said, because we had this conversation, he said, Charlie, have you ever thought about being white? Doug McMillan taught me this in a diversity session we were doing. He's on later. And you ever thought about being white? Nope, never. But black people think about being black every 28 seconds. It's exhausting. And just that acknowledgement, because he said that, he repeated that to all the teammates, is showing that he is getting the memo and he's coming around the corner. And so are you seeing this as a moment to reach down and highlight talent that could help you win for the next 5 or 10 years?
Absolutely. We have to, because this business, the financial service sector, and our company, we have unique challenges based upon actions in the past by previous leadership in the institution, where we've got a tremendous number of things we must accomplish due to the regulatory restrictions which we have on ourselves, again, by actions of ourselves. So that's been a 85% focus in the last year, and Charlie's only been there almost a year. But you realize now that we've got to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Right.
And chewing the gum is the fact that we've got to make ourselves a better company by encouraging and dealing with what are the impediments to seeing. I had a conversation with one of our senior African Americans in the lines of business. And he's been there 25 years. Charlie had asked all the OC operating committee members to get to call people and just get to know them, talk through, see what. So, and he said, I've been here 25 years, and I've had a good career, and he's very senior, so he does quite well. And he said, but I have to tell you, I have never been on a leadership team in any piece of this bank where I've moved where there's been another African American. Okay, which I was like, really? 25 years? That's the case. So that kind of struck me. Along with, to be frank with you, John, you mentioned about this. Do you ever think about being white? When you said that to me, in my life, I started to think through. And again, I've been in politics. I've been, in all this, around all this politics and government, all that stuff. And I thought to myself, the only time I really did, and it struck me, was on my first trip as Commerce Secretary to Africa, which I think was the first trip I took as Commerce Secretary. And I ended up very proudly, went 5 times, even more than Ron Brown went, who really spent a lot of time in Africa. And the first visit was the first time I kind of said, wow, you're white. And because of the reverse in the U.S., where I was in the minority, and I was
in the U.S., you're in the majority.
And here, I'm in the majority. Where in Africa, when I was there, I was in the minority.
Yep.
So it was the first time in my life that I ever had that sort of experience. And but here in this life I've lived, that never was even though I was around all the issues. But to look at it in that perspective was rather enlightening. At least I found that.
Yeah, you also called me and told me you met literally a rocket scientist who worked, a black person who had credentials to be a rocket scientist 3 levels down. You're like, my God, why is this person promoted? Like, what is this person doing over there for 20 years? I was like, what? But I
I don't have a lot of the left brain. I got a little of the right brain. But when I meet people who have left brain, I'm really impressed with them. And those who have both, like President Obama or like Bill Clinton, I get pretty impressed with them.
Yeah. So our time is unfortunately up. But thank you so much for trying to squeeze us in again. I think it was a rich and important conversation. We didn't talk much about what the bank is doing and all that. We can, I'm sure, follow up on all that. People, you're such a big institution in the world. People know your story. I will say that this stuff aside, the bank has done a lot of very good stuff over the time I have been experienced with it, and I think the best is yet to come. Rainbows only follow storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first, and just our continual engagement, you continually reaching out, suggests to me that you do see this is an opportunity to grow, and that is leaders aren't character is not grown so much as it's revealed in crisis. What were you about to say, Bill?
What I was going to say, and let me speak selfishly. Us changing makes the bank stronger, makes our employees, our customers, and our shareholders in a better shape, and that's what we're obligated to do, and that's what the path we're on. It's not a charitable thing. This is business, and it's the right thing to do, and it'll make us better.
And diverse companies and inclusive companies are the most profitable ones, and I know that's music to your ears.
Yeah.
Bill Daley, thank you so much.
Thank you, John.